Can you think of one thing that Bernie Sanders has in common with Adolf Hitler? Something meaningful. Not that both men drink water, not that both men breathe air, not that they both use a toothbrush. Can you think of something historically significant that Bernie Sanders has in common with Adolf Hitler? How about audience participation, guys? I'll tell you something that comes to mind for me. Bernie Sanders has been publicly criticized for being a multimillionaire because of the fortune, because of the vast fortune, because of the amount of money he made from the sale of his book. And that puts him in the curious position of saying, hey, look, guys, I didn't get involved in politics in order to become a millionaire. I didn't get involved in politics in order to become a hit author, in order to publish this book. I didn't do this to get rich and famous. It's just an unforeseen byproduct of this sincere political cause I'm pursuing, that I published this book and all these people bought it and I made millions of dollars from the book. Adolf Hitler became fantastically wealthy from the sale of just one book. It's called Mein Kampf. You might have heard of it. Um, I am not aware of anyone criticizing Adolf Hitler for this, but Adolf Hitler didn't need to work again in his life. He didn't need to do campaign fundraising. He didn't need to ask for donations. He made so much money from the sale of his book, he could have just lived as a millionaire without having any further political aspirations. And the publishing house that published the book, they were always trying to get him to write a sequel because it made so much money. And there is a sequel. It wasn't published during his lifetime, but there was actually a Mein Kampf 2, and there was a whole Hitler industry making money out of his celebrity, as an author, and then obviously as a political leader, and then, I think what happened after that. Do you think I personally am corrupted by the $200 per month I make through Patreon? Do you think it motivates me one way or another? Do you think over the last 5 years it's determined what I've done? Interesting question. Just to put my own name on the line here as an example to be discussed and debated. Do you think there's nobody in the world who would be corrupted, who would be significantly influenced by just $200 a month, or even a single payment of $200? There was a very memorable moment in a live stream I did with Sky. The YouTube channel is called Vegan, of course. His first name is Sky. There was someone in the audience for hours, for like 2 or 3 hours, insulting me and calling me a pedophile. And Sky refused to silence him, refused to censor him. So then eventually I'm on camera having a conflict with Sky about this, because we're both seeing these text comments go by over us. And Sky reveals, he just kind of mumbles it in passing, this was someone who had donated more than $100 before. So again, I forget what there was a single payment, but in a pretty short span of time, this was someone who had donated $100. Sky really valued this guy as a sport. And I had to say to him at that time and afterwards too, okay, this is what it takes to corrupt you. Like something as flagrantly over the line, like just in terms of a bannable offense, or not even a banning the person, just deleting those comments, whatever, a censorable offense, as repeatedly publicly calling me a pedophile again and again and again. These were not just one sentence. You can imagine they're making up, trying to derail the conversation on Sky. I mean, it's bad for many reasons. One of the reasons it's bad is Sky and I are trying to have a serious discussion about vegan activism, and this is derailing it. But this is very, very serious defamation. It's hard to think of a more serious kind of defamation, frankly. And you're telling me this is all it takes to corrupt you? $100? $200? What? What do you need, bro? Now, I haven't donated a dime to Sky. I haven't donated a dime to Vegan, of course. What if I did? How differently would Sky treat me? Right? I know how he treated that donor. They had a name that was very hard to pronounce, their screen name. It's totally possible they're back now, just with a different screen name, and I don't know it. I don't recognize who they are. Right? That's common on the internet. It's possible Sky even encouraged it because he needs the people in his audience, and he needs the money flowing in. I don't know. You know, haven't seen that person back under the same name again. Okay. What if I were the one donating $100? This is within my means. This is within my grasp. I live on about $2,000 a month, but $200 is a significant amount of money. Buying a new pair of shoes is a significant amount of money for me. I'm in my own financial struggle. But okay, if I carve out that $100, what does that entitle me to say? What do I get away with? To what extent do I corrupt Sky as an individual? Sky Sky just did like a 3-hour live stream with James Aspie, and I watched the whole thing live. I wasn't planning to, but I'm quite sick at the moment. I'm quite unwell, and I didn't feel like I could get to sleep. It wasn't that I stayed up for it. I felt like I was going to be awake anyway. Now, admittedly, I could have been reading a book by Woody Holton. I have several books I could be reading, but instead I stayed up with the live stream. As you can imagine, I was listening to about the first hour, hour and a half, actually, with a book open next to it. So I was doing reading while listening to it. And then, about the time they started dealing with cryptocurrency scams, then I put the book away and I gave it my full attention. In this 3-hour span of time, it's very significant to sort of compile and contrast the allegories both men use, both Sky and James Aspie use, to justify, I would say, just even to explicate what their careers are, what their jobs are. What It's not just the meaning of life. They're justifying you paying them money now, why they earn a salary, and what happens to the money. So Sky and I are the same age. We're both about 45. I should have Googled this first. How old is James Aspie? He looks about the same age, but I actually do not know that. James Aspie is 37, so he's actually significantly younger than either one of us. I wouldn't have guessed that, to be quite honest. He has a long history of drug use. If you look at these allegories over the 3-hour period, what do you find? On the one hand, both men want to claim that what they are engaged with, what they are engaged in doing right now, is equivalent to, is comparable to a struggle to abolish slavery. James Aspie complains that he has haters, his people sending him mean comments, is they don't appreciate that when he is lying on the beach sunbathing, his example, not my example, he's on the beach sunbathing, having a cocktail, smoking marijuana, enjoying the company of his girlfriend in a bikini. He's doing these recreational things on the beach. He chooses the example that when he puts up photos and videos of himself cavorting on the beach this way, that in fact, he is doing vegan activism on his mobile phone. Like, he is responding to Instagram and Twitter messages qua vegan activism. He is doing this for the animals while he's on the beach. And therefore, you should not criticize him for getting on and off of a first-class airplane flight, lying on the beach, doing these recreational activities. Okay? How is this comparable to being engaged in a civil war to bring about the abolition of slavery? Okay? Allegories like the abolition of slavery, allegories like political revolution, allegories about justice and injustice. Most Americans know the toponym Valley Forge. They know this strange Valley Forge. They have no idea why it's called Valley Forge, not the Forge Valley. They grow up just hearing about Valley Forge. You know what happened in Valley Forge? You know what happened at the Valley Forge, as people tend to say? Starvation. Men died of starvation and disease at Valley Forge. And here we see James Aspie and Sky, vegan of course, laughing together, cackling at the notion that they should have to live in voluntary poverty as a part of their struggle to liberate the animals, their struggle to bring about a vegan world, however you want to put it, how preposterous they think it is, both of them. However, that anyone who donates money to them should expect them to do anything other than live in luxury. All right. James Aspie, again, his choice of example, I didn't put the, how could I think of a more unflattering example? He compares himself to someone struggling for the abolition of slavery. He makes comparisons to Holocaust frequently. Okay, how is your life, James Aspie? How is your struggle? How is your political movement equivalent to a member of the resistance, let alone a member of a standing army fighting to stop the Holocaust? How is that comparable? You photograph yourself on a yacht, jumping off of a yacht into the ocean. When people question your methodology, what you're doing in terms of activism, you explain honestly enough that you are trying to become wealthier and wealthier so that you can be more and more famous and have more of these kinds of glamorous images of your lifestyle in order to promote vegan activism and save the animals. So if someone used your method, James Aspie, during the Nazi period, how would you describe what they were doing? This is way beyond fiddling well rumors. I hate to tell you this, guys, they had yachts back then. They had photographs. They had film cameras too. If someone said they are filming themselves on a yacht, 1939, just to pick a year, they're on a yacht in 1939, diving into the ocean, filming and photographing themselves in their bikini. They got their beautiful girlfriend. Sorry, the girlfriend is in a bikini. They're in their swimming trunks, whatever you want to say. They're showing off their body. They're showing off the affluence of their lifestyle, diving into the ocean and asking for donations so that you will subsidize this life of luxury they haven't earned in any way. You know, the concept of earning luxury leads us into other troubling questions, troubling complex implications. Okay. And the justification is what? This is a beach party against the final solution. This is beach babe bingo to stop the Holocaust. Yeah? What do you think about someone who did that? Now, I'm just going to be real with you guys. It's possible that happened. Like, talk about something that would be deleted from history. It's possible if you go through the newspapers of the time, if you go through like Time magazine, it is possible there were some celebrities who did fundraisers like against fascism that are about that embarrassing. Like I've never seen that, but nobody would select that and put it in my university textbook or something. Like nobody would select that as an example. Someone should do. Probably someone should do a popular history of failed and fatuous forms of anti-war activism or what have you. I have certainly seen a lot of activism like that historically, both from pro-communists and anti-communists. The Vietnam War, it's still very much in memory that people thought you could put on a bikini and dance around and paint flowers on yourself. And this was somehow relevant to what was going on in geopolitics, why America was fighting in Vietnam, and the question of whether or not people in Vietnam should have the right to vote. Still today, we can ask, should the people of Vietnam live under a tyranny that deprives them of the right to vote, deprives them of the right to criticize the government in newspapers, for example? Or should they have some kind of democracy that allows this and more? Well, the correct answer to that question cannot be arrived at by who can organize the most beautiful teenagers in bikinis to dance and chant slogans in the streets. And this is the American political tradition in the 21st century, is entertaining precisely this delusion. Okay, so again, I can't make the claim that nobody was yacht party against Hitler, yacht party, beach blanket party to stop the Holocaust. It's possible some things like that happen, but when you look back at those, these are the people who stopped the Holocaust. These are the people who changed the world, who changed history. These are the people who won. Okay, abolition of slavery, same question. Okay, women getting the right to vote, same question. The independence of India, same question. Okay. So there's a very curious change where James Aspie and Sky both, they do this together. They alternate between a totally phony paradigm of justice, depicting themselves as fighting for justice, and depicting themselves as perfectly honest social media influencers who are just trying to get rich and famous like anyone else on this platform. Okay. You can have a brief digression. You're going to come back one second, but I'm ready. This was James Aspie's chosen example. James Aspie says, how can it be fair for him to give these lectures for free and not make any money when he looks at another YouTube channel who just does unboxing videos and makes thousands of dollars, millions of dollars, huge amounts of money? We don't know. He says, oh, well, these other guys on social media, they make so much money, they get so famous just doing an unboxing video. Okay, well, which one is it, bro? Are you a revolutionary? Are you an abolitionist trying to free the slaves? Are you a part of the underground resistance or a part of a standing army fighting to stop Hitler, fighting to prevent the Holocaust or end the Holocaust? Or are you just another fame whore? Are you just another untalented person trying to be famous for the sake of being famous on the internet? Trying to get famous for no reason at all. Now, I published a book. I probably have copyrighted somewhere. Doesn't matter. I published a book that I put on Amazon for $1. Now, I just mentioned actually, Amazon adjusts the price slightly. It might now be $1.11. I actually don't know. The price of paper goes up when you have the price that low on Amazon. They actually adjust it because you're down to the minimum. But wherever you are, it's going to be a little bit more than $1 now. I don't know how many copies I sold. If I only sold 100 copies, again, I genuinely don't know how many copies. If I had charged $20 per copy, that's $2,000 in my pocket from that book, right? Why didn't I do that? Why didn't I charge $20 per copy of the book? And all of you in this audience, rich or poor, you've spent more than $20 US in a book. I regret it. I've bought books that were $40 US. I've bought books that were $60 US. I have bought books that were over $100 US. So to charge $20 US for the book, probably nobody would find fault with me. And I want to ask again, is $2,000 enough to corrupt me? I can ask you, what if I made $2,000 in the book and then I gave it to Sky? Is that enough to corrupt him? What's my influence if I paid $2,000 the book and I donate that to Sky? What if it's all at once with strings attached? Okay, look, Sky, I'm going to donate these $2,000, but here's what I want back from you. What if it's not? What if it's $100 here, $100 there, and I spread it out? Anyone can be corrupted by any amount of money. I've lived in places where my rent was about $50 US a month, 50. I've lived in third world countries. It could be there's someone in Cambodia, Laos, Thailand, and so on, for whom $200 and $2,000 is a really serious amount of money. But it has everything to do with your own attitude, with your own motivations, your own moral character. Now, why would I not charge $20 for my book about veganism? There are many reasons. Like one of them is the poverty of some people in the audience. I would like to be read by people who couldn't afford. But that's only one reason. The single most important reason, and the reason that's salient for this discussion today, I do not want to make money out of the vegan movement. It's not just that I do not want to appear to be making money out of the vegan movement. I actually do not want to make money out of the vegan movement. Now, depending on your level of historical knowledge, it will be hard for you to imagine this. How would the anti-slavery movement have been different if it had been led by, if it had been populated by, if it had been dominated by people trying to get rich and famous out of their opposition to slavery? All right? James Aspie is an extreme example. On the one hand, he is trying to get rich and famous out of his activism. On the other hand, he claims that his own opulent lifestyle, him exhibiting how rich and famous he is itself a form of activism. So when you take that step, it becomes absurd. It's like, well, how would they have ever abolished slavery? How would they have ever even made progress towards abolishing slavery? And then again, we can fill in numerous other examples in this way. Um, the men who were starving to death at Valley Forge, you guys may not know this, they did not have a common positive conception of what they were working towards. They were actually not motivated by a clear idea of democracy. Okay? I won't digress into a lecture here about the history of the American Revolution. They were united by what they opposed, what they were fighting against, not what they were fighting for. All the men in Valley Forge were there because they were committed to getting rid of the tyranny of the King of England. They wanted to overturn the tyranny of the king. There wasn't a common vision of democracy or what a republic would be or what kind of government they have. To what extent it would be an aristocracy, there is evidence. Some of the soldiers quite liked the idea that at the end of the war there would be an aristocracy and they would be the aristocrats. They were the soldiers who won the war, so they would become dukes and counts or what have you. They were all, and many of them were crazy Christian fanatics at that time. The religious fanaticism and their idea of a kind of religious United States of America, more of a theocracy form. And so they had all kinds of different ideas about what the future would be. They didn't know what they were fighting for. They knew what they were fighting against. And they were willing to endure starvation, freezing to death in the cold, and of course, death by disease, because disease normally gets you before the hunger and the cold does outright. Okay. And now here I am seeing James Aspey and Sky, James Aspey and the host of Vegan Of Course, cackling, laughing at the notion that vegan activists should live in some kind of voluntary poverty, as opposed to living like millionaire social media influencers. If you are going to articulate, explicate, rationalize what you are doing as a kind of revolution, okay, you must live like a revolutionary. If you are going to rationalize what you are doing as a kind of abolitionist, okay, then you must live like an abolitionist. But what if these two men had none of these pretensions? I have published publicly innumerable times, and I do it again at the drop of a hat when people just send me emails or talk on Instagram, exactly how much money I make and exactly what is done with the money. And whenever there is a fundraiser, whenever I collect donations for a particular cause, I show receipts immediately. Why wouldn't I? I showed every receipt for T-shirts that we sent people in the mail. It's me standing in front of the post office holding the receipt. Nobody cared. Whatever, $10 for shipping and handling at the mail. Well, yeah, but somebody donated me $20, and I want them to know, hey, $10 went into shipping and handling. Whatever it was, I have covered all those things. Trivial amounts of money. You know what's not trivial? The point of moral principle. James Aspey claims he received just over $6,000 in donations and that he donated $20,000 to vegan charities. And he claims there are receipts. When he's asked about the receipts, and I've seen this on camera, and I've taken clips of this and put them in videos on my own channel. So I know he said this, and I can prove to you he said this. Okay, James Aspey has deleted a lot of videos from his own YouTube channel. I suspect the only reason he hasn't deleted the damning videos on Facebook is that his Facebook got hacked. There's damning evidence of what he did on Facebook. Okay. But he has deleted. He's tried to cover his tracks on YouTube because he still controls his YouTube account. Okay. When James Aspey is asked about what happened to the money, when he's asked about these receipts, he says exists. He says, who are you to even dare to ask? Are you my boss? Are you my employer? You have no right to know. I used to end these streams by saying, the future of the vegan movement is you. future of the vegan movement is me. Okay, let's be real here. I think it's important to talk to your friends, talk to your parents about what your dreams are, to articulate them honestly. In part because just in saying your dreams out loud, saying what is your dream, what is you aspire to, you may notice absurdities and contradictions, how unreasonable or implausible they are yourself. And if your friends, if your family members are intelligent and helpful people, they may instead point out to you contradictions within your dreams. I think if James Aspie were just to say honestly to a good friend, if he had a friend like me in his life, if he were to say honestly that his dream is to get rich and famous by showing himself on a kind of permanent vacation, showing himself living as if he already is rich and famous, a good friend might point out to him the contradiction of that, might point out to him how implausible that is, how unlikely that is to work. Or might even say, okay, well, James, you've tried that for a couple of years, right? Given the outcomes, given what's happened, what are you going to do now? Like, don't you think you should reconsider, or you should change? If James really articulated to a friend that his dream was to lead a kind of revolution, a kind of struggle for justice, etc., but to lead that struggle by e-begging, by asking for donations while living exactly the lifestyle he does, etc., etc. Okay, a good friend could point it out to him. I have heard Sky say several times publicly on his live stream that he considers me a friend, that he'd like to consider me a friend, that he values me as a friend. Well, Sky, you've told me your dreams, and I have made a big effort to say to you, without offending you, without hurting you, without breaking your heart, exactly what the contradictions within those dreams really are. The first interview I had with Sky, it was already very clear that although Sky criticizes Wayne Xiong, although Sky criticizes James Aspie, because he does, he has hours and hours of frankly dishing dirt on James Aspie that James Aspie seems to be unaware of, although Sky criticizes Joey Carbstrong, in many ways, what Sky desires is simply to be the next Joey Carbstrong, is simply to be the next James Aspie, simply to be the next Wayne Xiong. And he insists again and again, Sky, unlike me, Sky insists that he has no problem with PETA, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, with PETA having more than $83 million per annum, tens of millions of dollars being spent, from my perspective, being wasted by PETA. He has no problem with that. If anything, he thinks there should be tens of millions of dollars more money. He has no problem with Earthling Ed getting rich, which he has, and I've made videos talking about that. He has no problem with Dr. Greger burning through more than $1 million a year to do nothing but make YouTube videos. He would like to burn through $1 million a year and make YouTube videos himself. He has none of the strategic criticisms of these other YouTubers I have. He has none of the ethical, financial, political criticism. It is blatantly obvious, especially when he's criticizing Jamie Logan, for example. He is simply jealous of them. He simply believes he could do better if he had the same opportunity, if he had the same budget. Now, let me just say, I think he's right. I mean, it is hard for me to imagine Sky squandering $1 million the way Dr. Greger does. It's hard for me to imagine Sky squandering money the way James Aspie does, the way Jamie Logan does. On that level, I actually believe him. There's a difference between being right morally and being correct. I'm sure that's true. However, I said before, James Aspie makes these claims about receipt, makes these claims of what happened to money. And then when he's asked about actually showing proof about what happened to money, he says it's none of your business. You're not his boss. You have no right to know. He goes in this act, which he basically repeated for Sky, of pretending he is morally superior to anyone in the audience who would dare to ask such questions. So the receipts supposedly exist, the proof about what happened to the money, the proof that nobody got ripped off, that nobody was bankrupted by his shilling for 2 cryptocurrencies in a row, one of which, Energy Web token, one of which is currently worth less than the FTX token, FTT. It's now worth, Energy Web token is valued less than the debunked token set up by Sam Bankman-Fried, FTX. So it's more than zero, It's not much more than zero. And the other one, Taco Cat, the other token he formally endorsed and shilled for and promoted, that's actually zero. Within a period of just 3 months, that dropped to zero. He wants to make the claim nobody lost any money. Well, that's remarkable. When you endorse and promote an investment, a financial opportunity, when you advertise, when you are in a collaborative agreement with to advertise this thing on your Facebook group, on YouTube, you get to promote it, and then that investment declines in value to zero within 3 months. It is certainly an extraordinary claim to say nobody got hurt, nobody got damaged, nobody's life was ruined. There are no sad stories. Look what everybody won. I mean, if it had increased from 0 to 100, that would still be an extraordinary claim, but that's not what happened. The numbers are never mentioned once, not by James and not by Sky. Okay. Sky admits he has his own history with cryptocurrency. He has his own history shilling NFTs, working with an artist for NFTs. How much are those NFTs worth today, Sky? You told people this was a positive opportunity. You told people this was a good investment. You're still saying it in this interview with James SB. So those NFTs, are they worth more or less than FTX token, Sam Bankman-Fried's token? Like if you call that a good opportunity, and then you look at what was, how about those NFTs? How did that go? Are they worth more or less than Taco Cat? Are they worth more or less than zero? Neither man is going to reflect on this, take responsibilities whatsoever. Okay, Sky, throughout this whole interview, you are crying poor. Okay? When I travel, I pay for my own airplane ticket. Like right now. Okay? When I stay in a hotel, I pay for my own hotel. When I go to the grocery store, I pay for my own food. You, Sky, have never disclosed how much salary you get from PETA, how much you're paid. Never. It is left up to our imagination in the audience. What is this minuscule salary you receive that's not enough that you complain about? I could probably ask at PETA and find out. I don't want to humiliate you. Okay. You also don't disclose how much money you make from YouTube, from donations, from Patreon. I mean, I disclose all those things. I used to do it regularly, but it was the same every month, and it was declining, by the way. And nobody was interested. But I can do it again this month. I can do it in any given month. But there seemed to be no point in taking the time to do it month after month after month. Kind of like, okay, yeah, this month I made $100. This month I made $100. It's pretty much that. And if you can go back and look at the old posts, and again, they're probably 10% accurate to what I made this month. But I'm happy to post all that stuff again. I've always been an open book with that. And sometimes just when it comes up in conversation with other YouTubers talking about, they're talking about how much money they make. I say, oh, well, you actually make twice as much as what I do. Here's how much I made this month. I just screenshot it and send it. It's no big deal. I actively treat that as public information. So Sky, you are crying poor. You are soliciting and asking for donations. When we don't know how much money you make from PETA, from your job as an employee of People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, which has a sinking budget of over $80 million per annum. All right? That's not a small business. We don't know how much you make from social media already, from YouTube itself, live streaming, donations, and otherwise, right? And you are living in a circumstance where you have one home in California, and when you fly back and forth to all these other exotic destinations, your flight is paid for, your truck is paid for, the gas in your gas tank is paid for, your hotels are paid for, your groceries are paid for. You've repeatedly mentioned that when you go to the grocery store and buy yourself lunch, it's not coming out of your pocket, it's coming out of the $80 million PETA has. I'm sorry, Sky, who has suffered less? Financially, it's quite likely you are in a better position than James Aspie, who has had to sell his dick on OnlyFans to make ends meet, who had to sell his van to make ends meet. Like there have been signs of James Aspie's own poverty. He had to ask for donations from his family members to pay for his wedding and his honeymoon. It caused a minor scandal. There have been signs that financially he's not so well off. But we don't know. You're both here soliciting for donations, representing yourself as poor, as hard done by, compared to what? Compared to the men who fought at Valley Forge? compared to the abolitionists, compared to people who participated in any, I'm sorry, okay, justice. Sky wants to frame this in terms of justice. He praises and acclaims James Aspey for talking about justice and injustice. Okay, bro, so how do you feel about rape activists, people who want to deal with #MeToo with the problem of rape and law enforcement concerning rape, responsibility for rape in the workplace, rape by police officers, rape in prisons, all kinds of rape. How do you feel about rape activists who do what you do, Sky? How do you feel about rape activists who do what James Aspey does? How would you feel about a rape activist who tries to get rich off of the movement? What about someone who, like James Aspey, their actual method of activism is showing off how opulent their lifestyle is and soliciting donations? So they're jumping off the side of a yacht for rape. They're having a beach party for rape. They're going to raves. Okay, so how would you feel about someone who's a kind of feminist rape activist using the same methods Sky uses, using the same methods James Aspey? It would be completely despicable. And the closest we come to really seeing this was the Black Lives Matter phenomenon. There were people just trying to get rich off that movement. There were people just trying to become famous on social media and so on and so forth. A lot of them were trying to get rich in the shadows, but for some of them, they were trying to get rich and famous. They were trying to promote themselves as this kind of personality, have a career as a TikTok star, as a YouTube star, so on and so forth. Thanks, Spen. Spen from the audience says, "Yo, Eisel, hope you're well." I'm not well, and guys, I've got to tell you something. I'm not getting better. It's not getting better. More than a year ago, I made a video on this channel called Desperate Cry for Help. You all know what happened, okay? Nothing has gotten better, and nothing is going to get better unless you make it better. Okay. I have 27 people in this audience. Actually, compared to the crowd Sky got yesterday, it's actually a pretty good number. Most of the time, he had about 27 people. I noticed there are only 4 thumbs up. Thanks for your well wishes, asshole. What the fuck? What do we have? 4 people give us a thumbs up, and the rest of you are here because you hate me, or what? I don't know. Maybe you're waiting for my next rap song. Maybe you're fans of my comedy, and you're like, what the fuck is this morality lecture about corruption and politics? That's possible. That's possible. But anyway, if you're actually here because you care about the content of the video, you should give it a thumbs up. I'm not expecting this to have more than 27 thumbs up, but the 27 of you who are here listening, I appreciate it. But look, I'm not well. And so this comes back to this issue about this discourse about dreams I introduced now 10 minutes ago or something. I have always accepted that the majority of attention within veganism was going to gravitate towards, the majority attention was going to be apportioned to bimbo bikini activists. The problem is, even if you accept, 98% of the attention is going to go to people like Freely, it's going to go to people like James Aspey. My question is, where's the other 2%? So bring us back to what I was saying before about dreams and the importance of kind of talking through your dreams with others. My dream was when I made a video about Stendhal's Chartreuse de Parma, when I made a video about the political philosophy of Aristotle, when I made a video about the history of slavery and genocide in Mexico, that like 5 people minimum would have an intelligent conversation with me about it afterwards, whether that was by Skype or by email or face-to-face, that I would have colleagues who cared about some of the same political issues I cared about, and would have substantive conversations with me about it. That's what I was after. And this is, again, another reason why my book costs $1 and not $20. I was never in this for money, but I would value that so much. And what you can do and what you can't do in this life has everything to do with how many colleagues you've got of that kind. Colleagues who are people of real intellectual substance and real moral substance, real self-discipline, so on and so forth. And sure, when I make these YouTube videos, when I publish these books, that's ultimately what I wish and what I dream for. Now, again, I didn't have anyone to talk through these dreams with me. I think a lot of people would respond to that dream and say, oh, well, that's totally reasonable. So look, I now have, I'm coming up with 7.5 million views. I think it's actually 7.4 million right now. You have over 7 million views. Even if intelligent people we're talking to are 1 in a million, you do this YouTube thing and you do these podcasts and you do this content creation and read books stuff. Well, you should have 7 people in your life, and they're not all going to be interested in Aristotle, and they're not all going to be interested in the history of slavery and genocide in Mexico. I've covered so many different issues, but yeah, no, that seems totally tense. Seems totally above. Okay. This is the same thing. If James Aspie had a good friend to sit down and talk about his dreams, after how many years do you admit to yourself, look, James, it's not working. You've got to change method. And I'm way past that point where I have to look at what I've done with my life and say it's not working. There's no one to reach out to. And I just mentioned over the years, I devoted many years of my life to study the Chinese language. So many million people speak Chinese, certainly over 1 billion people in the world speak Chinese. I had a similar kind of assumption. If you put in the work and study Chinese, you talk about politics in Chinese, you talk about veganism in Chinese, ecology, many things that interest me, history, yeah. You write a children's storybook in Chinese that many people told me the storybook I wrote was so meaningful and so emotionally moving to them. You'll make some number of contacts. You'll have some number of colleagues. There'll be some number of other intellectuals, who come into your life this way. And the answer is no, none. Again, I'm totally willing to accept like 98% of people are non-intellectual. They're just look at the reality of what's on TikTok, the reality of what's on Twitch. I opened Twitch the other day. There was a woman who had 2 cameras, one showing her breast and one showing her bum. I didn't choose the channel. It was what Twitch popped up for me by default, All right, and it's just her standing there and chatting with the audience with this camera on her body. She's wearing just a flesh-colored bikini. I get it. Okay. 98% of human beings, 98% of the time, are just consumed with the life of the body. But my assumption was I would seek out and make contact and work with the 2% who were concerned with the life of the mind. And it's so hard to quit. It's so hard to quit learning Chinese and look back on those years of your life as a total waste of your potential, because there is not even one Chinese person worth talking to in the whole world. I'll mention this now briefly, because it is very significant for me. The only person who during those years ahead of studying Chinese made the effort to communicate with me in Chinese was a white vegan woman. And while she was communicating with me, I really valued it. She was at a much higher level than me in reading and writing Chinese, but she was actually at a lower level in speaking and listening ability. So in some ways, great combination. But like her ability to write Facebook messages to me in Chinese was much higher than my ability. Like, I'd have to sit there and really read carefully what she'd sent me. But I was able to write back and forth. And of course, in some ways, I'm naive or what have you. This woman was incredibly beautiful. I'll just be really stunningly beautiful, shockingly beautiful. And when I first met her, she had a boyfriend. She never told me when she broke up with her boyfriend, interestingly. And I was like, oh, great. Here's someone who can be my colleague studying Chinese and talking about veganism and talking about politics, talking about history. We had a whole bunch of other interests in common. And I just completely accepted her story. I took it at face value, took it as definitive. At the beginning, she told me, like, she's not interested in me. She has a boyfriend. I was like, and also she was so good looking. Why would I even suspect she was interested in me? Like, I don't think in real life it's a simple saying this person is too good for me. That's not what it is. Nobody is too good for anybody. That's the truth. Instead, it's just like, okay, this person is so good looking. The situation is instead, this person is so good looking. They have lots of options. They have plenty of options. So why would they be interested in me? That's all. It's not a pneumatic scale. It's not a case that she's too good for me or I'm too good for her. But I was like, oh, great. So here's the one person. Now someone I can practice Chinese with and talk with both. It mattered so much to have one person in my life to communicate with. And of course, the irony was this wasn't a Chinese person. This was a white European person who also is making the effort to learn Chinese for different kind of political and philosophical reasons. But obviously, again, veganism was one of the things we had in common. And of course, it turns out, and of course, I should have seen it coming. And of course, the only reason she was talking with me was to have sex with me. And I didn't pick up on this at all. And that time it's like, okay, so I have a girlfriend, you have a boyfriend, we're just colleagues, we have a totally cool. Oh, and guys, that didn't. I mean, I mean, I have all these regrets about it, but the most fundamental regret of all is, talent is scarce. It's like my whole life could be different if I knew just one person who would work with me and encourage me in studying Chinese over a period of many years of my looking. And I lived in Kunming, China, and I lived in several different cities in Taiwan, and I was at a university in Canada where Chinese is taught. Like, I'm looking for these colleagues face to face in real life, and I'm trying to meet them on YouTube, and I'm trying to meet them on the internet for years. I'm willing to pay money for lessons or whatever. All right. So you don't mean one person. And it's like if me and that woman had met up and had sex, so what? Like, I don't see how sex with even the most attractive person imaginable could really matter more than the intellectual connection, the political connection, and the learning languages and all those things. The way that affects everything else in the rest of your life, like having a colleague of that kind, is so much more valuable than the sex. And as it happened, this is actually an incredibly attractive woman. So anyway, again, if you write this out within my tone of voice, a lot of people might take this as boasting or might take this as a happy story or something. For me, this is a tragedy. And it's a tragedy that's built into the kind of fabric of the internet. And it's kind of built into the fabric of the vegan movement. It's part of the corruption we're talking about here. That on the one hand, all that anyone cares about is sex. On the other hand, all that anyone cares about is money, fame, power, respect. That's about all that's going on. And when you are one of the few people who really has good intentions, you're within rap music and you really care about the music, the content, the future of the art form. You're within language study. You really care about learning the language. You're within politics. You're within whatever it is. This is what you run into again. Even if you work with the kind of cynical assumption that 98% of people only care about bikinis and the shape of the body that's in them. Like, okay, but I'm here for the other 2%. Okay, so let's wrap it up. If James Aspie were willing to articulate his dream openly to a good friend or family member, being honest with them, they could point out to him the contradictions within it. But one of the most glaring is this: you are asking people for donations and you're crying poor without simply giving a fair accounting of how much money you were receiving and what you were doing with it. This is a ludicrous contradiction nobody can overcome. There is no excuse. There is no way to rationalize this. I'm sorry, it's evil. You are lucky there isn't literally a law against this that puts you in prison. If you ask me what is the difference between James Aspie and Sam Bankman-Fried, the difference is Sam Bankman-Fried went to prison. That's it. Okay, same token, by Sky. Sky didn't come clean. Sky hasn't talked about what his involvement with cryptocurrency is, his involvement with NFTs is. Sky, the only difference between you and Sam Bankman-Fried is that Sam Bankman-Fried went to prison. You were just a lot less successful at the same scam game. And guys, we've all been alive during the same number of years. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm smarter than these guys. How much money do you think I could have made out of crypto if I were willing to do it? Like, are you fucking kidding me? I'm sorry. Sky used to study Shakespeare. All right. I don't think he knows Shakespeare all that well. I'm not real impressed when Titus Andronicus comes up in the chat. He seems to be a little bit out to sea on Shakespeare's Titus Andronicus. Okay, but regardless, not so strong on the relationship between Shakespeare, ancient Rome, and ancient Greek literature. Whatever. Okay, that was his field of expertise. I don't think Sky really has such a robust background in economics. Microeconomics, macroeconomics. I don't really think. I mean, again, so one of the questions is whether or not James Aspie and I are not going to have a rap battle. Yeah, I think I'm a better rapper than James Aspie. I think I am a better stock market analyst, investment consultant, economist than either one of these guys. During the last 5 years, what do you think I could have done with crypto, with NFTs, if I were not morally opposed to it? Okay, so there is no excuse for James Aspie not stating his accounts publicly to account for every penny, every penny of what happened with the investments, with the stock market, whatever you want to call it, the cryptocurrency fiasco, but every penny of the donations he is soliciting and what he's doing with them. And guess what, Sky? What's good for the goose is good for the gander. Why doesn't Sky give a full and honest accounting of how much money he is paid by PETA? Why not do it for this month, Sky? How much did your hotel cost? How much did your food cost? How much did your gas for the truck cost? How much did the flights back and forth between California and Florida cost? PETA paid for all of that. How much salary are you making for PETA? I understand he probably makes very, very little money from YouTube. I also make very, very little. Again, I've posted the numbers, but it doesn't matter. Okay, but post that too. Transparency and accountability. And then you can turn to your audience and say, this is how much I've received. This is how much I wish I could get. Right. Here is the project I am fundraising for. I remember the live stream singular in which Sky cried poor and said that he wished he could afford a drone. So that's like a miniature airplane that carries a camera so that he could get certain camera angles with the drone. Didn't last long. He had donations from the audience that paid for his drone immediately. I don't know if it took 24 hours or 48 hours. So somebody bought you a drone out of the audience. I don't know how much that cost, Sky. And one of the reasons why it'd be worth knowing is now, what are you going to do as a filmmaker with this drone? Like, what's going to be accomplished? Those questions have come up again and again in the history of the vegan movement. And if you have nothing to be ashamed of, right? Show and prove, motherfucker. Stop acting like you have something to conceal. Because it's a demonstrable fact that both of you and James Aspie, you're both engaging in misdirection and concealment for the full 3-hour conversation. Many years ago on this channel, I made the statement that it is immoral to waste someone's time. What I saw in the Buddhist religion was people being drawn in with false promises. Some of the false promises are very straightforward. If you meditate, it will improve your sex life. If you meditate, it will improve your marriage. If you meditate, it'll cure your health problems. Or if you do this magical ritual, like some of the very straightforward forms of scam that way. But often the false promises that drew people into Buddhism were much more difficult to summarize, much more complex and philosophical. People were told that the Buddha represented a feminist cause. People were told that the Buddha represented the end of slavery and liberation and emancipation and all kinds of noble things. Very often they were told that the Buddha was a scientist, that Albert Einstein considered himself a Buddhist and was a great enthusiast of the Buddhist. Well, it's not true. But the connections between Buddhism and science, Buddhism and ecology, they were drawn in with these false promises. And again, this is a field I was an expert in before I became involved heavily in the vegan movement. I had one toe in the vegan movement back then, you could say. But now I'm in the vegan movement up to my neck. Okay. And then inevitably, people will become disillusioned when they figure out what Buddhism really is, what the teaching of the Buddha really was, how this religion was totally misrepresented. And my point is this: in the vast majority of cases, what these people lost was not money, or the money they lost to Buddhism as a religion was quite trivial to them. Just the total amount of money they donated by participating in meditation retreats, for example, or donating to support monasteries, this sort of thing. It really isn't the money that mattered. What mattered was them being swindled out of their time. And it's interesting because what was the swindle? They were swindled by being sold a false philosophy, a false model of morality, and even you could say a false mechanism for changing the world. for making the world a better place. To a large extent, the hook that draws people in is actually one of altruism, activism, charity. And many of the interviews I've seen with people who ruined their life through Scientology, that's exactly what they say. Scientology and Buddhism overlap to some extent, topic for another video, but that they were actually drawn in by, but the extent to which Scientology presents itself as a political movement to save and improve the world. So look, we were all young once. Some of you are still young now. Okay. If you are 25 years old right now, it's hard for you to imagine this, but for me, it's easy because I'm so much older. I'm 45. What does it mean to sink your hooks into a 20-year-old and in this way waste their time for all those years between 20 and 25? If you knew someone like that who lost 5 years of their life to Buddhism, someone who lost 5 years of their life to Scientology, you'd say right away, wow, that's so sad. And if they said to you, hey, look, man, it's not like they stole $1 million from me. Like maybe they add up all the money over those 5 years. Maybe it's like $10,000. Maybe like, hey, I made little donations here and there over 5 years. They only got about $10,000 in me. You would say, that's not the point. What a mind-blowing impact this has had on you from age 20 to 25 and how this is going to shape the rest of your life and what you could have learned that you didn't learn. Okay. This is what I say to people in the audience. Again, this is what I say to my fellow YouTubers, again, including the people who are succeeding right now, because success can be the most corrupting element of all. Okay, so Natalie Fulton, standing on the street in New Orleans. Lucy Munson, standing on the street in Bozeman. If you do this again and again for 5 years, where are you going to be? What are you going to be doing? Who are you going to be? Stop. Really think deeply about what this means for the rest of your life. Really think deeply about what is being lost here. Okay? And that is the same thing I have to say, but with even greater passion and even greater intensity. When we turn our attention towards the false religion, the false idol that's being presented to us now in tandem by Sky at Vegan, of course, and James Asby.